Tears come down, tears come down like falling rain, falling rain. You toss around, toss around.
Ray Charles is an American singer, songwriter, pianist, and saxophonist, apparently, from Georgia. He's most famous for being blind and for songs like the song Georgia, Hit the Road Jack, and I Got a Woman, and also for a cameo appearance in the film The Blues Brothers. He's credited with being a founder of soul music, bringing together R&B, jazz, and gospel. How many albums has he created? Hard to say. One guess has it at about 60. His first was in 1957. His last was in 2004 before he died, but actually there have been 4 released of his material posthumously. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is a studio album by Ray Charles, fairly obviously. So this is it's a curious album in terms of its origins. And in fact, when I was reading up about this, again, just let's explain, as I sometimes do, my process. Because what I normally do is I listen to an album once, usually with as little information as I can. So I know about Ray Charles, I know who he is, I really like Ray Charles. But I didn't know anything about this album. So I looked up information about this album after my first listen and before my second listen. So I get a cold listen and then I get an informed listen. That's the point, okay? And I found, after I'd read an extensive Wikipedia page about modern sounds in country and western music, that I was reading the page for Volume 1, which is the original album. This is Volume 2, okay? So Volume 1 was a big deal. There's a lot of stuff about it on Wikipedia, and it is in this list, but it comes quite a lot later on, as I think is probably reasonable. And the big deal of this is that it was unheard of for a black performer who was basically soul music. He played kind of blues and R&B, soul stuff. And he deliberately stepped over the barrier into white music, which is what country and western was. And at the time, he was making strong comments about similarities between blues and country, particularly, and saying that there's actually a lot more in common between these music traditions than there are differences. And conceptually, I would say I really agree with him. And I think that now, this was 1962, we're now 2023, so I can't do the maths, but we're, quite a few decades later, I think that it's much more accepted now that the Americana as the kind of collective roots music from America has been called, so which includes things like blues and folk and country and Cajun and other stuff like that there is a lot in common and a lot of crossover between them. But at that time, that was a huge deal. I don't want to spend too long talking about that album, though, because I will come back to that when we get to it. I will just say that it was interestingly credited with a huge rise in interest in country and western music, that first album, and therefore possibly somewhat this album as well. This was a follow-up album to that first album and was released in the same year. And I guess you could say that this was, as a sequel and cashing in on the success of the first one. And why not? You can see why. It's an album of two halves. And that, literally with an LP, that would have been the two sides of the LP. The first half is traditional country and western songs. I believe they were picked out of a very large list by between Ray Charles and the producer that was doing this, and they were done with Ray Charles's big band. So it's got a big band sound and it's big band music. The second half, country and western songs done in a style that I would describe as being film score country and western. particularly from kind of 50s, 60s kind of feel. And basically, the backing is, well, there are drums which are very light. There's an upright bass, and most of the rest of it is a string section. So very kind of orchestral stringies, and then a vocal harmony group in a very kind of film vocal harmony way. You just have to listen to it and work that out for yourself. So the first half I quite like. The first track on the album is "You Are My Sunshine." It's a song that I really like. I'm not sure I would classify it as a country song, but I'm sure it could be done in a country style. This is done very much in a big band jazz style. Most of the first half you would describe as being jazz. There are elements of kind of country feel in it, but mostly it's taking these country standards and turning them into big band jazz tracks. The second half I'm less keen on. It's too syrupy and too cheesy. And yes, okay, I'll admit it, a bit too country for me, really. It is still Ray Charles, of course, on both halves. And I do like Ray Charles's singing. I find that there are certain voices that I latch onto and that I really enjoy. I find that many of those are female voices, but Ray Charles is one of the male voices that I just get a kind of thrill out of listening to him singing. He's great. I do feel on this album it's over-egged at times. His kind of, feeling of, everything's bad and I'm so lonely, etc. In his defense, it was 1962. Also in his defense is country music. And if you're not going to over-egg it with country, whenever are you going to over-egg it? Another interesting thing that I bizarrely enjoyed in the second half was some really subtle glockenspiel playing, which is a kind of little it's a metal xylophone, and it gives you little ding noises. And whoever it was who was playing the dings was able to do really kind of gentle dings that just added a little bit of texture, and they're quite often few and far between. You might find in one song that there's only like 3 of these dings. So they obviously had the easiest job, but it was also quite subtly done. And I was kind of kept looking forward to the next little ding from the glockenspiel player. The other thing that I look forward to is Ray Charles's piano playing, because as a pianist, there's a lot more of it, I think, on the first half than on the second half. But there is some bits on the second half, and it was always the highlights in what was going on to actually have a little bit of an introduction of his great feel with his piano playing. I love it. So the songs are generally kind of slushy songs about love and loneliness and so on. And I think you understand what my overall impression is, that I enjoyed bits of it. Some of it's less so I've got a bit of a balanced feel about it. Yeah. So there we go. And that's my opinion. As always, I'm going to invite you to give me yours through the comments box. That's it from me for now.